So the next speaker, coincidentally, also happens to be my brother. So Marko originally, he lives in Mexico. He came down to Australia to help out with the wedding, and he's been a ridiculous support. With the Bucks night, with the wedding, he's been like non-stop, just working full time. As well as, this is Marko, everyone. What I want to say about Marko is he's actually my younger brother, and he has more like go workhorse discipline energy than just about anyone else I've come across. He's got this ridiculous, how many of you have started businesses? Yeah, it takes a lot of energy. He started more businesses than I can think of. And it's like after he gets through that initial hurdle, he just kind of seems to get over it and then look for another hill to climb. So he's got this ridiculous amount of willpower where it's like when he sets his eyes and heart on something, he's just like, go. And during COVID, he moved over to Mexico. And because starting businesses in a country like Australia isn't hard enough, he thought, why don't I start a business in Mexico? Don't know the language, whole different set of laws. It's going to be fun. Okay. So I think that's where I'm going to leave you guys with introducing Marko. What I would also say is while he's getting the candles ready, is a long time ago, this is much pre-COVID, Marko and I used to run events together. So we were like Tony Robbins, but there was two of us. It was a lot of fun. When you work with your brother, you can get away with things that most other professional speakers would not tolerate. Like we would throw each other under the bus and it would just be for the amusement of the whole room. And us too. Like you never knew what was going to happen when we're on stage together. We didn't either. That was half the fun. You ready, Maki? Okay, round of applause.
Just one last thing before we round of applause. We forgot to mention it before Blythe spoke, but we tend to not do any filming of the talks when we are speaking in this room. So obviously the nature of Blythe's story is super confidential. So we're just like allowing that to be not filmed so it goes on social media.
Yeah. The speakers are filming it for their own uses, as you can see from the back. But if you did film anything, especially if it's sensitive, just get rid of it. You can put photos up. You can film us while we're up here. Yeah. Cool. All right.
Test, test. Everyone can hear me? Cool. Good. Testing. 1, 2, 1, 2, testing. ¿Me escuchas? Sí, claro. Yeah, vamos. All right. Well, thank you for that intro, Miroslav. So, my big fuck up that I'd love to share with you guys is accumulation or a sequence of fuck ups. As Miroslav mentioned, I've got a passion for business and for challenging myself in new areas. And so, the origin of this story starts of a significant turning point in my life. So, much like Blythe, I'm someone who seeks spiritual adventures all over the world. And I went to some sacred places in Mexico. And what we were told was you're going somewhere where there's cartel stops. So don't bring anything flashy. Bring the cash that you need for the week and that's it. So that's what I did. I booked my flight from the Caribbean where I was staying. And I had my return flight. And I had about 2,000 pesos worth of pocket money and that was it. And so I went, I did the thing, we danced around, did the ceremony stuff, got super spiritual, and on the way back we were given a candle, and this candle was symbolizing everything that you thought about during that time. It's your whole life. It's all your prayers, it's all your visions, it's all your inspiration, it's everything. And I just finished a 9-month process of silence where I did 9 months worth of ceremonies, I didn't speak. You didn't hear me breathe for a single one of the ceremonies. So this candle literally represented a brand new life. If you think about how long it takes a child to be born, 9 months. So I went through one big rebirth through walking in a very sacred way with indigenous elders. And so this candle literally represented my whole life and my new life in Mexico. And I get to the airport and I couldn't really speak Spanish at the time. I wasn't speaking for 9 months. Right? So I get to the airport and they say, your candle, it's flammable, can't go. And I look at it and I go, I've got 400 pesos in my pocket. and I don't have a way to get out of here if I don't take the flight. But there is no way I'm leaving without that candle. And usually in Mexico, things are a little bit flexible. Now, when you're in a more touristy part, you can get away with speaking English. I knew a handful of Spanish words, and these guys really didn't speak English, nor did they care to speak English. It was like, you're in my land, if you don't speak, like, yeah, get out of here. That's the kind of attitude. So I tried to negotiate as best I could with like sign language and this and that, and be like, come on, like, let me go. I got a flight to catch. And he was like, no, no way. And I looked at it, and every part of me was screaming, don't do it, Marko. You don't know where you are. You don't know anyone here. You don't speak the language. And I just took the candle from his hand. I took my bag, and I turned around at that point, and I walked out of the airport with 400 pesos in my pocket, 200, by the way, of which I spent on sunglasses. Because I was like, if I'm going to make a cool story out of this whole thing, I want to make sure I look really good too. So I walked out of that airport, and I had a handful of people that I met in that week, so I knew I could call a favor and have a roof over my head for the night. Again, I'm in a really remote part of Mexico. Tourists do not go there, so no one speaks English. It's so remote that your plastic cards don't work. So if you don't have cash, you're broke. So all my crypto, all my cash, all that stuff, useless. And I was like, I've got 24, maybe 48 hours before I become an inconvenience for these people that just met me. And I got to figure out a way to make money, enough that I can sustain myself. And I've got my 200 pesos, which is maybe 5 tacos. So I'm good for food on a day, maybe 2 days, if I'm really sparing with my portion sizes. And that night, I was like, well, I don't speak the language, so there's no chance, like, jobs are ruled out immediately. And so what do? Well, I know, I've got my flute with me, and I can play about 5 or 6 songs, and I've got my sombrero with me. So, So I knew about 5 or 6 songs at the time when I started this little endeavor of mine. I was like, let me see what I can do. And if you've ever been to Mexico, the style of busking is very different. The guys know, like, they'll pick a block where there's some restaurants and cafes and maybe a park, and they'll just show up right in front of you, get in your space, they'll play you a song, and they'll put their hand out. They'll take the money, and they'll come back in 45 minutes and do it all over again. Whether they can play a song or not. Like, they'll just make it work somehow. And so I guess there was something about my style which was a little more endearing. And to me, it was like, take it or leave it. I'm just going to play songs anyway. And so that first day, I played for about 3 hours. And I only knew 5 or 6 songs, so I was sounding a little bit like a broken record by the end of the day. And I counted up what I had, and I took it to my buddies that I was staying with, and I was like, well, like, how did I do? Because I didn't have a sense of the context for living standards in where I was. And they counted up the money, and they were like, you made in 3 hours what we make in an 8-hour shift. I was like, really? So you're telling me that if I just keep playing my flute, I can hang out here and like cover my lifestyle expenses and all that? Well, it looks like it. And I don't have to speak a word of Spanish. Go figure. So I went back to the park the next day, and I realized I might as well build out a repertoire, like make it a little more interesting. So I started practicing songs, like one song after another. Started getting good, found like a really good spot by this park where I started to figure this thing out. You know, I was like, I'll set up next to the hot dog stand, so when people have loose change, it'll just go my way. I looked at all the little pockets of opportunity that I could find and, you know, played them to my favor. And then eventually I started getting so good with the flute in such a short space of time, because I was playing 4, 5, 6 hours a day sometimes, that there was this flute which was like the epitome of flute songs for me. And I was like, I always thought it would take years to get to that, but what if I just make a commitment? Like I just go, you know what, I'm gonna figure it out right now. And so for 2 days, in the place that was very generously given to me, the neighbors listened to me just going at it on the flute. Like note after note, repeating it for about 12 hours straight, day 1 and day 2. I played until I couldn't feel my fingertips anymore, which the flute's a very gentle instrument, so it takes a lot of that. And on that second day, I felt something coming. I was like, I feel like I'm about to leave here. And sure enough, I get a message that says, Marko, you have to leave. Whoever the neighbors were and whoever the owners were of that building, they just had an earful. They had enough and they were like, get him out of here. So I was like, I'm back on the streets, man. Like I was just starting to build it up. But the really cool thing that happened throughout this whole experience was, like my flute funded 3 months of travel. I learned Spanish during the time, and I ended up starting up a little business. There's this beautiful route from Mexico called Chilcagüe, and so what happened was all the money that I was making, I ended up using very little of it because people fell in love with the story. They're like, who's this strange white guy in one of the most dangerous parts of Mexico? Like, it's not a tourist town at all. Like, who is he? What's his deal? He's got this strange instrument. He's here all the time. And so people just got fascinated by the story, and they started shouting me. They're like, I'll take you to dinner, I'll take you to lunch, I'll take you out for the weekend. Some people that I got to know after a while, they were like, come over to my place and hang out for a bit. So people just started inviting me everywhere, taking care of me. And I was actually accumulating savings with my flute. And so after a while, I was like, well, let me do something with this. And so I went down to the markets and started talking to the grandmas, because now I could speak a little bit of Spanish. And I was like learning about this plant, which is called Chilcagüe, which is more than a 538-year-old remedy that they have that they use for a whole many health benefits. And so I go down and I negotiate with one of the grandmas, and I'd be like, we do the deal. I'd pay her, I'd be like, now give me your recipe. So she gave me a recipe, and then a few days later I go down, another grandma, we do the deal, pay her, give me a recipe. And so I accumulated a range of recipes, tried them out over a period of time, and came up with what was a pretty good product. I was like, cool, this is sweet, but for me, if I do something, I want to do it the best that I possibly can. So I was like, I'm just buying this stuff from the local grandmas. I don't know where they're sourcing it from. They don't know themselves either. They're just buying it from a larger supplier. I was like, let me find who's the go-to grower for this plant. And it turns out there's one 80-year-old elder whose family for many generations has been cultivating this plant. They found what they identified as growth zones where the plants come out a little more potent. And so I decided, you know what? I'm going to deal with him. And in Mexico, everything happens over WhatsApp. Like, you can do a whole deal and pay someone and everything over WhatsApp in a few minutes. It's really cool. And I message this guy and I go, hey, I want to buy 20 kilos of your root. And he goes, haha. Okay, here's the account. And the way he responded, I was like, he doesn't believe me. And I don't know what's going to happen with the money if I just send it. So maybe I should go out, maybe I should shake his hand, introduce myself and all of that. And so I call him. He goes, yeah, I thought you were joking. I'm like, no, I'm not joking. Like, I want to do business with you, but let me come out and meet you, and let's get to know each other, and then we'll do it from there. He goes, sure. Here's my location. I search the location on Google Maps, it doesn't show up. I call him back. I go, where? It's not showing up. He goes, look for this town. My town's really small. It's not on the maps. But look for this town, you'll find the town there. I'm like, okay, cool. So I find the town where I'm supposed to go. And I'm like, now I need a driver. And I call for one driver. Before I've even finished the sentence of where I want to go, he hangs up. Okay, next guy. And at that point, I could speak Spanish, but it wasn't super clean. So I was like, maybe it was something with that. So let me call the next guy, hangs up straight away. Third guy, hangs up straight away. Fourth guy, why do you want to go? Details. What time? This and that. And I don't know if you guys have ever hung out with Mexicans, but they're really chilled. Like, they don't get fine with the details. This guy was like a Swiss Army knife. He's like, I'll take you, I'll pick you up at 6 a.m. If you're not off the mountain by 2, I'm leaving you there. So I was like, all right, sweet. I didn't think much of it at the time. I just wanted to go meet the elder. And so he picks me up at 6 a.m. I get in the car, and I start asking him questions. I'm like, you're really specific. Like, it's out of character for Mexicans. What's the deal? And he goes, where we're going, it's one way in, it's one way out, and the cartel stops almost everyone the moment the sun starts coming down. And I was like, got it. And so we drive out there. We get to the town that I was told was next to his town. We didn't see signs for his town anyway. And the town that he told us is the bigger town was like a little quickie mart that had 3 products: potato chips, Coca-Cola, and water, and a tortilla shop, and a little monumental train, and that was it. I was like, this is the town? Like, we're never going to find this guy. I walk in there, and he said, everyone knows me, so just ask for me, they'll tell you where to go. I walk into the tortilla shop, don't know who the guy is. I walk into the quickie mart, don't know who the guy is. But she goes, there's a map, just where that train is, you go look, you'll find a little map. I'm like, sweet. I go around, I'm walking around this train, like, what map? Like, and then the driver goes, here it is. And as if you gave a 3-year-old a crayon and said, draw me a map, someone on a little stone just wrote words of the neighboring towns and drew a line. Nothing to scale, probably not even orientationally correct. And I was like, cool, that's where we need to go. Now we know. Good stuff. Long story short, we ended up finding the guy. It was all sweet. There was a whole adventure to find him once we got to the land. And then, once I started extracting it and all of that, I was like, this is sweet. I'm finally ready to go. I've got the best of the best product. I've started bottling it. I've made over 100 liters of this stuff, and I'm ready to start sending it to the US, where I can actually make a bit of a profit. I go to the post office. I go, I'd like to send these 10 liters to Texas. It's got alcohol. Can't leave the country. Fuck. Invested all the money, all the cash, all the time to do the extract, to do the thing, to package it, to do the whole thing, and I can't sell a single bottle outside of Mexico. So I go through a whole process to figure out how to get into the States, a process which I won't reveal because it took me forever to figure out. And so it's my little commercial advantage. But then I was like, you know what? I wanted to give myself an upgrade. So I started with these bottles, and the caps were a little bit flimsy, and sometimes they'd leak and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? I'm going for the best of the best, so I'm going to do the upgrade to the Myron glass. If anyone knows anything about the Myron glass, it's like super good for plant remedies, protects a lot of the properties and the benefits that we get from the plants. It's like, sweet. So I ordered a whole bunch of these bottles. This was before I was going to ship it, so we're backstepping into the story before I made my way to the post office. And I ordered the bottles from Texas because they don't sell these bottles in Mexico. I don't know if you guys know, geographically, Texas to Mexico, it's a 2-hour flight. I ordered these bottles 6 weeks later, there's no bottles. And there's no communication about the bottles either. And then I went to Serbia for a little bit to see some family. I was gone for another 6 weeks. I was like, you know what? I'll follow it up when I'm back. I won't think about it for the next 6 weeks. About 5 weeks in, I get an email from the people that sent it to me, and they say, it's been delivered. I'm in Serbia. Who has it been delivered to? So I write back and say, who's it been delivered to? The security guy. I was like, all right, you know what, like, I'll deal with it when I'm back over there. I get back to Mexico, and I reach out to them, I go, all right, like, exactly where did you deliver it? And they go, it was one of the apartment buildings in a place called Playa del Carmen. I don't know if you guys know about it. Like, hotspot, tourist spot. Apartment buildings everywhere. And security guards in front of every apartment building. And on the DHL records, it says, security guy in front of apartment building. And there's a photo of a Mexican guy peering into 5 boxes of these bottles. And I go to them, do you have a number? Do you have anything? And they go, no. That's it. So now I have to go from street to street, through apartment buildings, looking for a needle in a haystack. Fortunately, it was on the road that I was on, so it didn't take too many buildings before I found the spot. And I get there, and I go to them, look, like, these are the boxes, here's the photo, here's the guy, do you have the boxes? And the manager comes out, she's like, yes, we have the boxes. I'm like, great. can I see them? And this is like thousands upon thousands of dollars worth of stock. It's been sitting with them for a couple of months. Can I see them? No, you can't. Why? Come back tomorrow. We'll have them for you tomorrow. Okay? Come back tomorrow. And she walks in and she goes, what did you have in those boxes? What does it matter to you? Like, there were some glass bottles. She's like, yeah, we looked in it. We didn't find any glass bottles. Really? What did you find inside? Well, we found tostadas. Now, I don't know if anyone knows what a tostada is. It's a corn tortilla that's been toasted. I ordered 5 boxes of dark maroon glass bottles. I got 5 boxes of tostadas. Here's the big fuck up. Try doing business in Mexico as a person with a foreign name. See how that goes. And I was like, all right, can I see the boxes of tostadas? You can't. Why not? Well, they've gone missing. So I go back to my apartment and I write up an email to the company that I bought them from with a DHL request for a return. And the thing literally read, this feels like the most ridiculous message I've ever written, but apparently you sent me 5 boxes of tostadas. I have no way to prove it, other than what the woman at management told me. Can we please organize a refund? And she responds, we will look into this. So, this business has been an absolute thrill. It's been one fuck up after the other the whole way through, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. So the way that Miroslav said that there's that tenacity in me that just seeks to continue pushing through situations, it seems like it's found me, and we're having a great time. So I think I'm coming up to my time. So I'm going to cap it off there. Thank you for your attention. And we're going to bring Miroslav back up. Thanks, guys.
Round of applause for Marko. All right, couple of questions. Good luck with this one. Yeah, Anfia.
Did you end up learning Spanish in the end?
I did, so I can ask...
I thought you were going to respond in Spanish for a moment.
Sí, claro, puedo hablar. ¿Tú hablas español? No? All right. I was testing you out to see if you could... Claro, sí. ¿Tú? ¿Un poco? Bueno. Vamos a México. Puedes aprender más.
Tú eres muy guapa, by the way.
Gracias.
Navdeep.
So I'm curious, that was brilliant, thank you. I'm curious, the lessons you learned from doing business in Mexico, how have you translated that to how you show up in business, I guess, in Australia?
Can you guys hear at the back? How have you translated the lessons from doing business in Mexico to Australia, doing business in Australia?
Well, there's just a lot less friction here. Yeah. So I feel a lot more graceful in doing business here as opposed to Mexico. And if there's any one big learning for me, it was when I was dealing with like mostly the customs guys. I had times when they tell me, we got your shipment, but we have to inspect it. It can take 3 months. When a Mexican tells you it can take 3 months, you're guaranteed it's going to take at least 3 months. That's the minimum, right? So what I learned was like how to find the comedy in it and build relationships with them through that. And I realized that things become pretty flexible. And so it was through learning Spanish and like understanding a little bit of their culture, not just basic fluency, but actually knowing how to weave in their ecology of how they live and breathe, that I was like, sometimes you can speed things up a little bit. Yeah.
One last question. Did you have one as well, Drew? No? You going to get loud or do you want the mic? I'll repeat it. Yeah, so you don't have a question? Okay. Does anyone else have a question?
Did you ever get the refund for the tortillas? And what the fuck is the product?
Good questions. So, fortunately, they did end up refunding me, which was really cool on their part. I don't think they ever got the money back. And if they did, they would have got the tortilla money, which was a lot less than the dark marin glass bottles. Yeah, that'd be cool. So, do we want to get 3 volunteers who are open to trying something new? You're going to have a sensory experience that you've never had before. Yeah? You've tried it, man. Haven't you? Oz, come on up.
Marko, do you want to give us some info about?
Yeah. So this product's pretty dynamic. It's most commonly referred to as chilcagwe. That's the name of the plant. It's a little yellow flower. Looks like a daffodil. And the root is what has all the medicinal components to it. It's been used since pre-Columbian times as a cure-all for the people where it grows indigenously. And so for them, this was for gut problems, tooth problems, mouth aches, ulcers, overall fortification of the immune system. It's an adaptogen, so it teaches your system how to respond to environmental influences. One of the cool things that I love about it is the sensation. For some people, it throws them off a little bit, so if these guys make funny faces, you know what's going on. But if you remember Warheads, the candy, Warheads or popping candy, it's kind of like that. And it goes on for a couple of minutes. And what it does is it essentially clears the tongue and the palate and any negative bacteria, clears it all up, helps to remineralize the teeth, it kills off any inflammation, any ulcers or any negative bacteria, clears all that up. It's antibacterial, antiviral, antiparasitic, antimucosal. Like it just strips the body of anything that it doesn't need in that way, restores gut bacteria. And if you're into like ancient indigenous wisdom, the ancients referred to it as chilcoat. That's in the Nahuatl language. And coat in Nahuatl means serpent. And they use that name for a couple of reasons. Partly because the root itself is serpentine in nature, in the way that it grows. But also partly because you'll notice a vibrational tingle on the tongue. And it's actually toning your tongue vibrationally to the way that a serpent orients itself in its environment through the vibrations of its tongue. And so it actually helps you clear your relationship to your word and the people around you. So, gentle version, slightly stronger version. There you go. Now, when you spray it, like bring it close to the mouth, because if you get it on the lips, your lips are going to feel like they're going numb. So, just down the hatch. You can spray once, you can spray more times as you feel, up to 5. Yeah. You'll notice a lot of moisture and salivation as well.
Do you guys want to offer some words?
Yeah, like, it's stripped. I don't have any words right now. It's taking my breath away. But I can feel that tingle. Feels good.
It's doing something.
Woo.
It's definitely working.
It's like lots of little ants just doing this. It feels like that. It's like just moving. Whew. And it's not. It's not like Spice. You know, in Spice you can't do anything this like.
Like doing that inside a soda stream machine.
Yeah. But like, how many did you do? 4. 4. I did 4.
You're a bit busy.
I was being ambitious.
Yeah, it's cool.
Wow.
I love it. I was going to say, yeah, I feel like a soda stream machine. And I feel if I had buttons here, they'd just magically open. That's nice. It's very nice.
Round of applause.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
And round of applause, one more for Marko as well.
It'll die down. Yeah.
You don't have any extra bottles on you, do you?
I've got one bottle.
He's got one bottle. Usual price $70. Tonight $600. But what I would say, if you are interested, connect with Marko. I'm sure he can ship bottles and that kind of stuff as well. So.
Yeah, happy to do an event special and get them shipped out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You want to give us a few?
Yeah, I'll give you a few success stories. So for me, on a personal level, I used to suffer from a lot of like teeth sensitivity to cold ambient temperature. I used to feel really fragile. Since I've been using it, I haven't had that once. So that was really cool for me on a personal level, and that was more than enough for me to just keep using it for the rest of my life. I recently had some messages from a customer in Melbourne who said that his mum has had like a depressing, salty taste on her mouth that no doctor could figure out. She sprayed it a handful of times and it's gone away. And probably the big one that when I launched it in the States, I went to a David Wolf event and held a stall over there, sampled it with about 350 people. I don't remember how many people came around to me and said, I lost my flavor during the pandemic, my sense of flavor, and just from the sample. Like not from using the product extensively, just from the sample in one day, their flavor senses came back. So it really strips away at any garbage and nonsense that we have there and just awakens us. Yeah.